I am so happy to have you here. Hey, Darnell. So good to see you. Sir James, glad you have made it. Hello, hello. Wow. Have some amazing faces that I haven't seen in a while. Hey, Sean. Hello. So, wait. Hey, Nikki, how are you? Good to see you. Glad you could make it. So, listen, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Just simply because this is a topic that I don't know about you guys, but I personally have kind of struggled a little bit with on and off throughout the course of my life. And so to be able to share with you guys and have the discussion with you, of course, as always, I need y'all in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your perspective. If something resonates with you, if something is like, not quite, I don't really see it that way, that's fine too. I don't need everybody to think like me. That would be crazy, right? Um, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, good evening and welcome everybody to my live tonight. Of course, I'm Dr. Nicole J, your confidence coach, helping you to discover ways to improve and enhance your confidence so that you can go after the life that you desire and you deserve. So, as usual, I started this, I believe, last week. I want to leave you guys or start off with two quotes today that I believe will just kind of, hey, Trey, that will kind of help us to get on the right track concerning the discussion today. So, the first quote is: too many people overvalue what they are not and undervalue what they are. And that's by Malcolm S. Forbes. I think I'm going to say that one more time because when I read it, that hit me, right? It said too many people overvalue what they are not and undervalue what they are. So just break that down for you really quickly. What that quote is saying is the things that we think are important are the things that are outside of us when it's really the things that are within us that are most valuable, right? We're always looking outside for things to fulfill us, um, things that are valuable. But in reality, it's our own mind, it's our heart, it's the way we treat people, it's the way we love ourselves. Those are the most valuable things. And the second quote is a little longer, and it says, loving yourself does not mean being self absorbed or narcissistic or disregarding others. Rather, it means welcoming yourself as the most honored guest in your own heart, a guest worthy of respect, a lovable companion. And that's by Margot Anand. I chose that one as well because, yes, it's okay to value yourself. It's okay to say, it's okay to tell yourself that you're worthy, that you're worth it, that you're important. No matter how other people look at you, no matter how they feel about you, to yourself, you have to be valuable to yourself before you can expect other people to value you. Like, I hope that makes sense. But both of those quotes really hit me when I read them, and I just definitely wanted to share them with you. So, of course, our topic today is choosing you, self love. And it's so easy, and everything that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, and I'll kind of run that down. We talked about the impact of fear, finding joy, navigating relationships, being intentional, setting boundaries, reclaiming your identity, and the comparison trap. And all of those things that we've talked about, this is the most important and the most foundational topic because everything else kind of hinges upon how you see yourself, how you speak about yourself, what you think about yourself. And so if if we're talking about the topic of self-love, first we have to get on the same page of what that is, right? Because for many of us, we may feel like self-love is just, and these are more examples than definitions, but we may look at self-love as treating ourselves to something, or I'm going to take myself shopping, or I'm going to take a nice bath, which those are things that we can do to show ourselves that we love ourselves, but that's not the definition of self-love, right? And so when we talk about it, it really is a regard for one's own well-being and happiness. Now, that's the actual definition. My definition is seeing, accepting, and loving every part of oneself. I'll say that again. My definition of self-love is seeing, accepting, and loving every part of oneself. Because we all have really great parts to us, right? Our personality, the way we handle conflict, the way we talk to people, the way we talk to ourselves, but we also have flaws. We also have things that we have done, failures. We've also had lessons that we've had to learn. We've had times where we didn't do the right things. We have to love that about ourselves too, and the way we handle those situations. Because here's the thing, and I think I was listening to one of my good friends have this conversation the other day, and you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Does that make sense? Like if you haven't yet found or haven't yet started practicing self-love, and it is much more, right, than just saying I love myself. But what are your thoughts? When you make a mistake, what are your thoughts? Where do they go? Does it go to, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm such an idiot, I'm a loser? Like those types of statements are the ones that we think before we say it, and a lot of times those are the ones that tear us down from the inside out. And if you want somebody on your side, shouldn't it be you first? Shouldn't you be on your side first? Absolutely. And so when we talk about loving ourselves, that's important, because how can we love others if we don't know how to love ourselves? If we don't know how to treat ourselves, if we don't know how to speak highly of ourselves? And we get into relationships. And this is one of the key points about talking about self-love, is that we get into relationships and we're looking for love from someone else to fill the void that we haven't yet filled ourselves, because we haven't learned how to love ourselves yet. Or we get into a relationship with someone who's expecting it from us. And all we can give them, if we think of ourselves like a well, right? If our well is dry and we don't have that life, that water inside of us that says, I have more love to give. Because I have this well of love springing out of me because I've loved myself first, I'm able to give to you, right? Absolutely, Nikki. So self-love is super important. And so if I don't have that, if my well is dry, I'm pouring sand over you. I'm pouring dryness over you. And all I can give you is what I've seen. I can't give you what I know. And even if I give you what I know, it's not going to be what you need. Why is that though? Why are we okay giving other people something that we don't give ourselves? We want to give other people our attention. We want to give other people our resources. And I want to clarify by saying those things are not bad. It's not a bad thing to give other people those things, but the first person that should be the recipient of that love, the recipient of that forgiveness, and we're going to get into all of those things in a minute, it should be us. Like we should be giving that to ourselves first. And please let me know if there's something that I'm skipping over, something that I'm missing, because oftentimes we forget that we're a cup. One of my friends yesterday talked on live about, do you think of your cup as half full or half empty? Ebony, she talked about that yesterday. But thinking about your cup, if your cup is empty, then you have nothing to offer. And then so you'll find that your relationships feel empty because it has to start with you first, right? And so we'll talk about 3 important keys about self-love. And before we get into those, you have to know that self-love is a journey. It's not something that you learn overnight. It's not something that you get down packed overnight, right? So from childhood to adulthood, we've learned habits and patterns, behaviors, and not all of them serve us well, right? Not all of those behaviors have taught us how to love the right way. Now, I will also make this disclaimer to say that when we speak about the word love, depending on what your belief is, you can have a different influence or different understanding of what love is. For those of us who know God, we know a different side of love. We know a love that's all encompassing. We know a love that's forgiving. I could run down the Galatians scripture, but today what we'll do is we'll pretty much just stick to the basics, right? So when we talk about love, when we talk about being able to love ourselves, those habits, those things that have hurt us, sometimes they keep us from loving fully. Sometimes they keep us from being able to give to others, because where have we learned these things? Where have we learned the habit of, if I love you, if I tell you that I love you, that means that I should always choose you first? That's not true. That's not true. If you tell someone that you love them, that means that you are choosing them, yes. But there are so many other times where you have to choose yourself first. And I hope that makes sense to you. And we'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute. But in order to have better love, be more compassionate, and be able to accept ourselves, we really have to be able to incorporate those practices of self-love into our lives. And so first we'll talk about why self-love is important. And then we'll go into what it could look like. What some things, some activities, some ways of showing ourselves self-love looks like, right? And then lastly, we'll talk about ways that we can improve the way we love ourselves. And so when we talk about self-love, we're not just simply talking about how we can impact others, though that's important. Right now, the focus is on you. I'm pointing at myself and saying you, but you, you. We're talking about you and ways that you can start to look at yourself in a different light as the amazing person that you are. We're so good at complimenting others. We're so good at giving our accolades to other people. We don't always talk to ourselves like that. Actually, a lot of us don't talk to ourselves like that. We encourage our kids. We encourage our family. When's the last time you encouraged yourself? And meant it, right? Not just affirmations or, I'm beautiful, I'm amazing, I'm powerful, but you actually believed it. When was the last time that happened for you? So, as Nikki said a little while ago, self-love is important. It's a major factor in the way that you handle conflict. It's also a major factor in the way that you handle your own personal struggles. So what's your go-to when you're having a difficult time? What's your go-to when you have failed at something or didn't hit the mark? What's your go-to thought? Is it, you know what, I'll get it next time. This time it wasn't my time this time. But guess what I learned? Or is it, I thought that I can get it and I'm never gonna achieve this. I'm a failure just like my uncle. I'm a failure just like my brother. Yes, Ebony, absolutely. And I just talked about you. But yeah, so yes, definitely positive affirmations, they help. But guess what has to happen when you use those affirmations? They have to be more than words to you. So you can't just take someone else's affirmations and try to apply them to your life. If you don't believe them, they don't work for you. So if you're saying in your mind, I'm an amazing speaker, and every time you open your mouth, you're thinking, I sucked. I messed up again. Man, like I stuttered when I talk and I forgot my words. And if you're looking at all of the negative things that happen when you speak, instead of encouraging yourself that you'll get it right, that you'll do it right next time, that you're improving, that you're better than you were before. That's how you love on yourself, right? The same way that if you saw your friend messing up, if you saw your friend failing or missing the mark, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, you're the worst. No, you would tell them, man, like, I saw it. I saw what happened, but I believe in you. And I believe that next time you're going to kill it. Matter of fact, let me help you work on that if that's your strong suit. We don't do that too often to ourselves. John. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Nakia. Hi, Dr. Terry. So the lack of self-love can definitely make you doubt yourself and have you wondering if you're enough. It can have you looking for validation from others. And it can definitely have you, for some of us, engaging in self-destructive behaviors. Because if we're not loving ourselves, then what are we doing? Right? Now, the opposite of love is not necessarily hate. It's not necessarily that we hate ourselves, but it is the fact that if we're not loving ourselves, then 9 times out of 10, we're tearing ourselves down. Because you won't necessarily hurt, not intentionally, the people that you love. And that has to start with you. Hopefully I don't mess this up. Okay, so James said, I've always found it easier to love on others because there is immediate feedback from their affection towards me. It can be so difficult to give yourself that type of love feedback. That's very true. And not only is it true, but self-love can be difficult, right? And I say difficult because when we're people who are, and I think you were definitely here when we talked about this the other day, and we said that when you're a giver, when you're someone who would rather give than receive, who gives compliments freely, but for some reason has trouble receiving it, we're those who definitely need to start practicing self-love more, because we're looking for, like you said, James, the immediate feedback from someone else, which is validation. So ask yourself, is that the most important thing to me and for me? How other people feel about me, what other people are saying about me. And so here's the thing. If you're in a place where you feel like someone else's words mean more important to you than your own, someone else's thoughts about you are more highly valued than the way you think about yourself, that's when conversations like this have to happen and reevaluation of where you are. And that means it's time to put yourself first. And that's when it can become a little painful for some of us, because we have to turn some things down. We have to tell some people no. We have to take ourselves out of certain environments, because sometimes that's the only way we can grow. Sometimes that's the only way that we can start to actually look at ourselves, when we take ourselves out of environments that are toxic, that are not healthy for us, and that are pulling us out of or away from things that we personally desire and need. And we have to be willing to go through that pain. For those of us that's a painful process. Some people say no with no problem. Some people turn down things with no problem, right? Like I am someone that a lot of times has a problem saying no. Oh, I got you. I can handle that. I can do that. And the next thing you know, I have 7 projects and I have no idea how I got to 7. It's like, oh man, I thought this was going to be quicker. I thought I was going to be able to do that. I thought I could be there for all these people. And so when you exhaust yourself, when you find that you're running out of energy, you're running on fumes, and it's all for the sake of getting approval from other people, it's time to start drawing back so you can start focusing on yourself. You have to be pouring back into yourself. You have to be putting yourself in environments where you're being refilled. We talked about our cup being empty, right? Sometimes we will run ourselves ragged, unfortunately, right? But what are we doing to pour back into ourselves? And on a daily basis, are we accepting our flaws? Are we accepting of our flaws? Are we forgiving of ourselves when we make mistakes, when we do things that we're not too proud of? Because that's you. That's a part of you. That I'm not perfect, but guess what? I'm striving to be the best person I can be. And sometimes that's all we can do. Actually, that's always all we can do, is be the best person that we can be. And here's the thing, if it's a challenge for you to learn to forgive yourself, how are we forgiving others? And we know, at this point that forgiveness is not for the other person, whether it's someone else involved or not. Sometimes our forgiveness just has to do with us not keeping our word to ourselves. Sometimes our forgiveness for ourselves has to do with us saying, well, I'm never doing this anymore, and then you do it again. I'm never going here anymore, and then you go again. I'm never getting involved in this relationship, and then you find yourself back in the relationship. And to you, you made promises to yourself that you didn't keep. And that affects your confidence, but it also is still something that should be forgiven. Because we're human. We make mistakes all the time. And you can forgive everybody else. Forgive yourself. That's so important when we talk about self-love. Forgive yourself. It might not be something that's normalized. You may come from an environment where your family, they beat themselves up when they make a mistake. Not you. Not you. You already have everything that you need within you. I think I posted that earlier, but if you are going to go to the next level, period, in your life, whether it's spiritually, emotionally, mentally, what you think about yourself and how you feel about yourself have to align with what you're saying about yourself. So forgiveness is super important. Are we gracious to ourselves? Like, even when we talk about forgiveness, are we gracious to ourselves? So I remember, my son is a trip. For those of y'all who know, I have an 8-year-old son, right? So I don't always tell too many stories about him because, he's a kid. But I remember when he was, I think he was 4, right? And he was in this preschool program. And I can recall telling him, we're working on his homework. He had homework at 4, y'all. It's okay though, because, it helped him to get stronger in those areas. But he would be working on his homework, and I would explain something, and he would tell me, he would repeat back what I said to him, right? And then when it came time for him to do it, it's like he forgot that fast. And he would tell me like, Mom, I'm just so stupid. And I would say, sir, when I mess up, do you call me stupid? Are you angry with me when I don't get it right? No, I need you to talk to yourself the same way that you would encourage your classmate, the same way that you encourage mommy. I need you to encourage yourself the same way. You're intelligent. You're amazing. You got this. And so sometimes when it comes to kids, we have no problem giving praise, accolades, affirming them, but we don't do it for ourselves. But that changes today, though, right? Right? Because today we start not only loving ourselves, but we also start affirming ourselves. And so, what can self talk look like? Some things that we could, if we are practicing self love, some things that we could look for, right? Of course, we talked about positive, forgiving self talk. It's okay to tell yourself you love you. Like, and it's the craziest thing that, like, some people think that that's crazy. You tell yourself you love you? Of course. I look myself in the mirror and I say, I love you, girl. And I can say it very seriously. You can say it in a way that makes you laugh. But we need that. So guess what we don't have to look for from other people when we do it ourselves? Love. Of course, we want it from other people, right? But we don't get to a place where we're so desperate to find it that we go any and everywhere for it. We subject ourselves to all kinds of relationships in order to find it. No, because we've already found it in ourselves. And so affirming yourself, that's also something, hey, gorgeous. Hey, beautiful. Today's going to be an amazing day. I have no problem saying that to other people, but guess what? I got to say it to myself first. You got to say it to yourself first. Man, like, you are so powerful. They thought that the work you did last time was dope. They have not seen what you put together this time. Like, you really have to talk to yourself like that. Choosing yourself and prioritizing your needs. That's another way that we can see ourselves, or we can see self-love in ourselves. If we're not prioritizing our needs, and before we even get there, we have to be honest with ourselves about what those needs, wants, and feelings are. So it's nothing like, and this is an example, and I'm a culprit. I'm a problem person because I like going with the flow a lot of times, right? So it's like you'll see these memes all the time about when guys ask a woman, what do you want to eat? And we're like, oh, nothing. Oh, whatever you get. Or usually it's nothing, right? And so they go get their food, and what do we want? We want to taste their food. We want to share their food. Yeah, we were hungry. We just wanted you to figure it out and pick something that's good for us, or get us what you got. We was going to eat it. We wasn't going to let it go to waste, right? But if we're not honest with what we need and how we feel and what we require with ourselves, that's when it becomes a problem when it comes to loving ourselves. Because now we're trying to figure out, well, what do I really want? What do I need from myself? Well, I need to show up for myself. That's one. I need to consistently pour into myself. For me, that's reading a book. For you, that might be writing, journaling. But something has to happen on a consistent basis for us to pour into ourselves. And then, that's after we figured out what it is that makes us feel fulfilled. Right? Giving yourself permission to make mistakes without punishment. So the concept of punishment, and I think we talked about this when we talked about navigating relationships, I think. The concept of punishment doesn't quite make as much sense when we're adults, right? So when we make mistakes, are we like, okay, well, I can't have dessert for a week? Like, as crazy as that sounds, there are some people that feel like if they don't reach some goal, if they don't get themselves to this place, if they fail at this, well then, I guess I just don't get to go on this trip. Now, there are certain moments when that makes sense. If that's an important goal of yours, and in order for you to hit that goal, you have to give yourself something like, I guess, a punishment if you don't get it, right? But concerning self-love, love doesn't punish. That's not what it does. So give yourself permission to make mistakes and still feel good about yourself. Still feel like you're worthy. Still feel like you're enough. Still know that you're enough, right? Also, doing the things that you love and taking care of yourself. Those are other ways that we can see self-love in our lives. So when we talk about doing things that we love and enjoy, our lives can't always be about what other people want to do or what other people want from us. Of course, when we have kids, we know that they take up a very large portion of our time and of what we want to, from what we want to do. However, you still got to make that time for you. You still have to make that time to, if you decided that drawing is a way that you feel you express yourself the best, you got to make time to do that. If you don't, you're depriving yourself, of something that brings you joy, of something that brings you peace, of something that makes you happy, right? And taking care of yourself. My goodness, when we talk about self-love, you have to talk about self-care. Because how are we saying that we love ourselves but not the temple that we've been given? How are we saying that we love ourselves, but every chance we get, we're beating ourselves up physically in ways that degrade our body, not in ways that help us to live our fullest life? Yvette asked a really good question. She said, what if you don't know what you want or need because you've been making sure someone else's needs and wants are met when you're not for sure what yours are? Yeah, so Yvette, that is an excellent question. The only way that you can know what your needs are is you have to, one, spend time with yourself. If it's for you, if you think about what things are important to you, not what things are important to the people around you, not what things impact the people around you, but if it was just up to you, if it was just about me getting what I need. I think too often what we do is we're thinking about what we want, but in terms of how it affects other people. And you can't do that when you're talking about self-love. It has to be some level of selfishness. And that doesn't mean that we ignore other people, right? Or disregard others. But there has to be some level of selfishness in order for us to start knowing, understanding, and implementing loving ourselves. Yes, we have other people in our lives that matter, that have some level of priority in our lives. But guess what? They're not the only priority. And they're definitely not the sole priority. They're definitely not the most important priority. You are. Because if you're not here, if you're gone, if you're not healthy, if you're not well, who takes care of them? Who helps to meet those needs if you're not here? So you always have to be in a position mentally first to put yourself first, especially when it comes to your health, especially when it comes to taking care of your temple. And so lastly, then we talk about how can I improve my self-love, or how can I enhance the way I love myself? And I appreciate you asking that question, Yvette. That was a really good one. Some of these things we may already do, but not realize that it's something that if we tweaked it just a little bit, it would become more meaningful to us. Hey, Danielle. She said, I needed to hear this. The older I'm getting, the more I'm realizing I have more fun with being alone than around others sometimes. That can definitely be true. Hold on, wait a second. Are you born in February? No, but I definitely feel you on that. There are times that sometimes you don't want to be pulled on. You don't want to have to show up here and show up there. I just want time to myself. I want to know that the only needs I have to meet today are mine. In this moment, the only needs that I have to meet are mine. And that also, there's nothing wrong with that, because you can't be everything for everybody all the time, which is why we're having that discussion today. Right, I remember. But absolutely, like, you can't think that, or we can't think that every single time someone calls, we have to make ourselves available, even if that person is important to us. For some of us, our moms are everything. But guess what? If you're struggling with your mental health in that moment, that's not the time for you to try to show up and be there for her. Yeah, your friends might need you. You might be that dependable friend. But today might be the day that I just need a day to just be. I just need a day to just relax and not have to take on the weight of someone else's events, someone else's conflicts. And saying no to the people that you care about can be difficult, but it has to be done if you're going to start feeding yourself, pouring back into yourself, and replenishing all that you pour out. So, enhancing your self-love. For those of us who write, spend time journaling. And not just journaling about gratitude, because that's good, right? But journaling about the things that you love. Journaling about your heart's desires. Journaling about the things you love about yourself. That's important. That's so important. Because some of us don't even know what we like about ourselves. If we had to talk about ourselves for 10 minutes, we would have a hard time. Why? Why is that? When if you ask me about my son, I could talk about him for at least 2 hours. Like, man, he's so funny. And this time, I remember when he did this. But then we have to talk about ourselves highly, right? We have a difficult time. Well, yeah, I like to play basketball sometimes. And I guess I like shopping. And we get stuck. We get stuck being able to talk about us, what we love about ourselves, what we love to do, how we want to make an impact. But I should stop here or put a pin here to tell you that you're worth getting to know, right? It's worth it for you to get to know yourself. Because who is it that we're out here trying to impress? Yeah, people have opinions. People have things that they think about us, how they feel about us based on their perspective and what they've seen. But they don't see the whole picture. So we have to be the ones to spend that time with ourselves, really getting to know who we are, what we love, what we don't like, because that's important too. If I know that I don't like smoking and being around smoke, and this is a very simple example, but why would I choose friends or environments where all they do is smoke? Right, I hope that made sense as well. Ways that you can improve your self-love, doing things for yourself. And that's a common way, right? Whether that's taking yourself shopping, if this is a big if you have it in your budget to do so. I'm not saying I love shopping and I'm gonna go run it up, right? Because we don't want to get into self-destructive behaviors. But if that's something that you have budgeted for and that's something that you're capable of doing with self-control and that helps bring you joy, do it. Within reason, do it. But also it could be sometimes with self-love, in self-care, we think about spa days, like taking time to relax, unwind, decompress. For some of us, It can be talking to a therapist. That can be a way that we love ourselves by dealing with our mental health. And that's a major one. Because too many times we neglect our mental health because we think that other people's health, other people's well-being is more important. But ours is just as important, if not more. If not more. We can't take on everything. When do we release it? When do we decide to release it? For some of us, that could be, today, I'm just not going outside. That's how I show self-love to myself today. That today I'm going to rest. And rest can be hard for those of us who are used to going all the time. And we feel like if we're not moving, then nothing's happening in our lives. But that's not always true. Sometimes it's in the stillness that you really start to see yourself, that you really start to understand your body, the way you work, the way your mind works, your needs, your wants, in the stillness. And some of us don't have stillness too often, but we need that sometimes too, right? And then so another way is we talked about putting our health first. Taking a break from people and things that aren't contributing to your health. Is that your family? Are those your besties? Like, I mean, that is what it is. Sometimes we have besties that we can only take in small proportions because there's so much that comes with that relationship, and it can be draining. And yeah, they're important to us because we've known them forever, because we can trust them, because we know they got our backs. But when it comes to our mental health, they're not at the top of the list of people that we think of contributing to us having good mental health. And we have to be able to recognize that as well when we need breaks or when we can only take a certain amount of people, a certain amount from someone in a given time. And sometimes you might have to tell them that, but other times you just have to separate yourself for a time, right? And then lastly, recognize the thoughts and words that you say to and about yourself. You got to start changing your language, changing what you say when you look in the mirror, changing what you say, and you have to correct yourself. If you say, I'm crazy, man, I'm so crazy, why would you say that about yourself? You're not crazy. You might do things that are a little irrational sometimes, but crazy you are not. Man, I'm of a sound mind. And that can sound so like radical to some people, but we have to speak that life into us because the world is speaking all kinds of other foolishness and telling us what it is, how it is we should think, what we should believe. But we decide that. Not only do we decide that, it's important that we have a hold and that we're in control of those things. Because before we can expect other people to speak life into us, we got to do it first. So as I come to a close tonight, guys, of course, as always, www.boldvibesllc.com. Under shop, if you have not yet purchased my ebook, it's called You Are Enough, Rebuilding Your Confidence After Divorce. You might not have ever been divorced, but guess what? You might need to rebuild your confidence. Guess what? You might have been in a relationship that when it ended, you had a hard time getting yourself back on your feet. You had a hard time because you poured so much into it, realizing the gift that you are. And you're a gift. I don't know if you knew that. You're important. I don't know if you knew that. And you're a force. I hope you know that. I love you guys, and I hope to see you on Tuesday when we meet again. You'll definitely see a flyer to know what time and what the topic will be. But I look forward to seeing you. Have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you soon.